Hi, my name's Janelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. Thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A with Avatar: The Way of Water. Please join me in welcoming today's guest. He is, of course, an Academy Award winner for his work on Titanic. Please welcome Russell Carpenter. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Whenever I have someone as accomplished as you, which is not often, but I love to go back to the beginning and know how you started. What was your first job as a cinematographer? Like, did you start making short films? Were you filming with friends, or what was the first time you got paid for it?
I spent a lot of my earlier life just working for PBS and doing educational things, documentary things. And while I was at a PBS station, there was a director there who desperately just did not want to just do documentaries for the rest of his life. And so he got a furniture czar in Orange County to finance a horror film if the furniture czar's wife could be a very prominent zombie in the film. And so we got some money and we did a film that miraculously called Soul Survived. Miraculously, it just got released. I mean, like we're saying 2 weeks worth of release. And I thought, okay, I'm in on this. I really like shooting features. And I moved from Orange County, not very far, up into LA. And then that's when reality hit.
That's so cool, though. I'm a big
Yeah.
horror fan, so
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to
I've
track this
done plenty
down.
of those. Yeah.
And you've been collaborating with James Cameron since I think 1994's True Lies was your first
Yes. Yes.
work together. When he comes to you with a project, is it an automatic yes, or what specifically interested you about entering the Avatar universe?
Well, first of all, I met James at a birthday party for Eddie Furlong. I was doing a Pet Cemetery 2. Eddie was one of the leads in that, and Jim came to the party, and of course I was like, I don't want to, oh, I guess I'll talk to him. So we just talked, and we just talked for a little while, and then it just turned out that he was doing an independent film. And that film eventually went away, but that's when I met him and showed him some of my stuff. And, that film evaporated, and I was pretty sure that was the one and only time I'd ever see Jim Cameron again. But then a few years later, I was in New Orleans doing a film with John Woo called Hard Target. And I got a call from his producer that just said, when you get back into town, Jim would like to have lunch with you to talk about a project.
Wow.
And basically I just said, sure, and my wife said, you didn't ask him what it was. You didn't ask any more questions than that. So at that time, this was like 1993, and the internet wasn't really up and running. And so my crew and I would try and get all the trade magazines we could and to see what he was doing. And the only thing that I saw was that he was doing this film called True Lies. And yet mentally, I couldn't put myself in that same box. So I kept looking for something else he was doing, like a documentary or something. But when I got back, it turned out we had lunch, and that was the project he was talking about. And so I started working with Jim back in 1993 or 94, and it was a trial by fire. And every day I would repeat my mantra, which was, "I really need this credit." I made it through. I was happy with what I did, and that was the first time ever I'd worked on a film where, when it came out, I saw people lining up around the block to see it, and I thought, wow, that was something. And then I did a venue picture, Terminator 2, with in 3D with him. Titanic came up. I shot some tests for it, but he eventually went with a really, really amazing cinematographer, Caleb Deschanel, and I said, okay, that's the right person to do Titanic for, because that's what was his next project. And I got a call a few months into their filming of Titanic, and John Landau said, there might be a little friction on the set. Maybe would you like to what are you doing? And I was working on a film, but I was able to release myself from that and come on to Titanic. And then Titanic was just an amazing, amazing project. It was being built at a studio in Mexico that wasn't really built yet for the film. And so when I would go down on weekends to look at it, it was literally like the most exciting thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was like the gold rush. I mean, things were going up so fast that every week that I went down, every weekend that I went down, there'd be a new building there. And all these pits were being dug for tanks. It was just an amazing thing. And, it was so funny because, I wanted to get as much information as I could from Jim. And, I had a phone call with him and I said, well, Jim, let's talk about the look of the film. What do you want the film to look like? And he said, this is a period film. You know what period films look like. That's what he gave me to go on.
Yeah.
So of course I, like a crazy ant, I went around to as many departments as I could and got as much information as I could as to, what they were doing in the art department, what they were doing in the visual effects department to get this film and then made. And that was Titanic, of course, was a physically exhausting but great experience for me. I mean, it was lovely, and the interesting thing about doing a project like that's that visible and is that as ambitious as it was what eventually happened was the trade papers, Variety and Hollywood Reporter, were it was almost like a death watch because we were going over and over and over budget and things were happening. We were going behind schedule. And so, actually in Variety, they had, if you look back there, they had a little black box on the front page just called Titanic Watch. And it was okay, this is the next catastrophe that has befallen the Titanic, or so, and it really was like that because it became kind of a cause celeb in terms of, hey, this is the next Cleopatra, this is, in terms of financial disaster. And but then, it was a miracle, I mean, and yet, Jim has this amazing, I don't know, this gift from the galaxy to, believe in himself, believe in the potential of what he's doing and just hang in there. And that was an amazing thing to watch. And then,
by the way, you say Titanic took a long time to shoot, but that's nothing compared to Avatar: Way of Water.
Yeah, okay, exactly. We are talking with Avatar, we're talking about a film that has a tremendous gestation period. I mean, after the first Avatar, Jim did take some time off to do the things that he wanted to do with his life. But eventually he comes back, I think around 2013, and starts to work on what would become 4 films and with the writers. And the film is made, I say it's made like a layer cake. Maybe there's a better, a metaphor or analogy, but I mean, you start with a script and that could take a year or so, 2 years to write that. But then now the art department, the production designers have to come in and create concept art. And out of that concept art, you have to develop a world that looks like the world that Jim wants to shoot his movie in. And so that's years of, designers, armies of people in CGI stations building an environment for Jim to shoot in. Okay, so now another year's gone by or so, and I'm not saying that they get done and they're finished. They get done with enough that they can keep contributing and making stuff virtually up to the day we shoot. So so you start these layers and they never seem to stop. But so now he has this environment. Now he has to, like a director would normally, go to the location and scout it, which for Jim means going onto this massive stage called a volume with all these motion sensors around it. He has what is like the most glorified iPad I've ever seen in my life. uh, and with sensors on this. So now the computers with all these sensors around the stage they know exactly where everything is in this environment, and they know exactly where Jim's supposedly pointing his camera was up, down, this way, how fast he's moving on his feet, and they present him with exactly what he should be seeing, as imagined for the film. So he scouts that and says, he may say, which he can do, is, let's move that waterfall over 20 feet, or, this mountain's too big, let's move that mountain down. There's another, how many months is that goes by? And then finally he's ready to bring he brings what he calls his troupe in to the process. And they're very gifted people who are like stunt people, they're mimes, they're stand-ins for the actors. And he starts to block out each scene and say, okay, this is how I envision the scene. This is where this character is going to be. This character's, it goes, there's another year shot. Well, let's say another year of building, so we say. And then finally, our actors come in. And now that the shot's been blocked, we know where everything is. The actors act out the scene. There's no cameras there. There's no real lighting, nothing to get in the way of their concentration, nothing to get in the way of Jim's concentration. And the scene gets shot. And what he's also doing all this time is not only shooting with his virtual camera, he has an army of people shooting with, what we call conventional cameras, just shooting every possible angle there is. So he can take all this information into his editors and basically cut the scene. And so he's kind of
motion capture.
This isn't a motion camera. Well, he could motion camera as he blocks out the scenes, and so that goes to the computer. But then these other cameras that are just shooting like normal cameras that you would normally see on a set, but they're maybe not as sophisticated. So he has a team of people shooting. He shoots his main angle, but this other team shoots all other possible angles, cuts, close-ups, side angles. This all goes into the editor, who now has this wealth of information to cut a scene, present it to Jim. Jim says, that's okay, but let's go back and cut it this way. It may go through 2 or 3 different versions. He's got that. Then he does the scene over again with the actors, and that gets cut again. And so he's refining. Then a year before photography, I come in and I start doing in the computer world, I'm doing virtual lighting. And then with my team, I'm trying to get ready for everything that's going to hit us when we get into live action. And so you've gone from 2013 to me coming on in 2018 to actual shooting in 2019. And we're shooting 2 movies basically at the same time. And it wasn't really until 2020 that the filming was finally done. Now I've tried to condense that, but now you get a sense of how involved this project really is. I mean, it's crazy complicated, and I don't know who else in the world would invent this process to,
Well, that's why I was curious, because I had heard that all the motion capture stuff was done before, you began filming the live action. And I didn't know if you were a part of that process. Like you said, he's filming it, did you have to be there for that?
Yeah,
or
I would drop by and just at this point, anything Jim's doing on the stage now, he's calling performance capture. So anything, either with the actors or people who stood in because they started working out stunts a long time before we shot, that's all performance capture. So then there's kind of a change in how he sees, this whole process. So no, I came in enough to, basically see things that he was doing on stage, and my team and I looked at what he was doing and we're saying, oh my God, look what he can do. He can turn around and say, move this over there, that over there, this for this angle, this Navi's too tall. Let's make him 6 inches shorter, and then let's turn this person. Let's rotate this person this way. I mean, it was amazing. It was such amazing freedom. So now we were thinking, okay, when we get to shooting, let's work out a system that's somewhat like this. That's not like, oh my God, we got to send Harry up into the perms here and move this light around, and that's going to take us at least 20 minutes to do that. So we went to based on what we saw Jim doing, we went to a system where we of course we have what you basically I'll call some movie lights, but we started to work into the world of rock and roll lighting in terms of using all these moving lights that you might kind of see on American Idol or something like that, that can do so much remotely, that can be programmed from the ground. And we said, this is the way we're going to tackle most of what we're doing on the movie. And so that for us was a big kind of change in how we originally saw, our job. So
I mean, you're working with a lot of emerging tech here, because I'd never heard the term stereoscopic cinematography.
yeah.
This, I don't know if that's something you've done before.
Well, I did that with Jim in 1993, except now we have a camera, a handheld camera that you can actually put on your shoulder and move around like Jim likes to operate, or our Steadicam. We had a much smaller system. In 1993, the cameras were the sizes of refrigerators, were small refrigerators. I mean, it's just a tremendous change in that kind of technology. I mean, the technology not only was born out of things that they did in Avatar, but also things that they did in Avatar that Jim said, hey, we've really got to change this, make this better. And they had this system called Simulcam where Jim can look around and see what he's doing. But he said, let's make this even niftier. Let's make it even better. And so now we could use it. He used it to basically shoot the virtual world. Now we used it when we got onto the stage, this tremendous technology, so that once our cameras had to be, our live action camera had to be basically be fused with the virtual camera. Now the computers know that the live action camera, now they show the live action camera everything the virtual camera could see. And so now he could pan the camera this way or that and go, oh, Spider's over there. Here's Jake over here. And now he's got tremendous freedom to do that. That also helped us tremendously in our lighting, because one of the things I was tasked with was basically seamlessly embedding Spider into this world of the Navis. And now technology is so much better. I mean, it's not like you could not only have the Spider standing next to Jake or something, but you can have them touching. You can have a Navi lifting Spider over his shoulder, but the main thing for me was this lighting that I'm doing has to completely match with what's been created before. Otherwise, the viewer is going to be taken out of the picture in some way, because everybody kind of knows what sunlight looks like, what, light in a forest looks like. And so now I had a tool, because the Simulcam not only shows you, but it shows you in depth. So now you could have a Navi walk in front of Spider and block him, as would normally happen, walk behind Spider and Spider would block the Navi, or put his hand on Spider's shoulder, basically, and you'd basically kind of see what that looks like. So that was, for me, that was the ace up the sleeve. I mean, it was a tremendous technology.
Yeah, because the Navi are like 10 feet tall and Spider's a young boy, and I can't believe how effortlessly they blend together.
Yeah, well, just touching on the young boy thing. When I first saw Jack Champion, he was a kid. He was a tadpole. He was a really young boy. And what was happening was, we're shooting 2 movies, and our young boy is turning into a young man before our eyes. And so we had a ticking clock, and that was a big thing. How do you get through things? And then we had, in the middle of it all, we had COVID, which shut things down for much longer than we imagined. So yes, there's that ticking clock. But yes, we did have a growing person, and yes, that was an issue with the making of the film.
I'm also curious about, you have all this new technology, but then you kind of utilize some old tricks in places.
Yeah.
Like, I understood the fire on the water was done with like a trick that's been around for years.
Oh yeah. No. Well, the fire in the water was. Basically, the trick has been around in that you're shooting into the water, and then maybe you put a big painting or something up on the wall, and that becomes a reflection in the water for certain things. Here we had these giant, basically LED screens. They were like 12 by 20 feet long, and they were huge. And they provided our reflections in the water. We would reflect these into the water, especially in the scenes where the ship's going down and chaos is, and there are big fires that are on the water. Not only did we have those reflections with our screens hanging above the water, but we realized to make it look right, we would have to bring our screens down. They should really be in the water. And we would realize that would be quite expensive because they'd be in the water for about half a second before electronic chaos happened. And that would be a very expensive proposition. So we came up with the idea, and this is an old trick. We actually hung these screens horizontal to the water, but just under the screens were very large, basically mirror-like surfaces. So and the mirrors, because they're not electronic, could go into the water. So then the reflection goes all the way down. The reflection in the mirror seems to go all the way down in the water. And we built several systems like that we could roll around the tank. And that was an old-fashioned thing. And the thing about Jim is, like, he is so cutting edge, but he knows so much of the old technology, the old tricks, that he's really happy to go there. I mean, we had jungles that were convincing jungles up on the screen, but when we shot them, it was basically just a bunch of blue screen. And so to get the shadows right, I mean, not only did we use old-fashioned, like, okay, here are tree branches, but we had a fantastic group of electricians who would make these things out of macrame, whatever they found, and they were just like collages, assemblages of shadows that we would put up in big screens, and we would shine our light through that. And you'd look at the screens and you go, that's just so ridiculous. It's just so old school. But then you look at the movie and you go, it totally works. So we do that a lot too.
You're also shooting in both 24 frames per second and 48 frames per second.
Actually, when we shot, we did a lot of testing. And when we shot, of course, we did a lot of testing on everything. But when we shot, Jim said, what I want to do is shoot at 48 frames because I want to give Weta more information. And I want to have some flexibility. Like, I want to be able to be able, for some scenes that require it, fast moving scenes, shoot at 48 frames, but for other scenes where it might be more pleasant or close-ups that are not moving, I want to revert to 48 to 24 frames. So that's just what they would do, is they just double print basically. We shot at 48 frames, and then he had his choice of either using 48 frames or half of that, 24 frames per second.
Wow. And 3D.
Pardon?
And you're shooting in 3D.
And we're shooting in 3D. Yeah. And again, we did have a year to prep. We had a year. We had a year to make our mistakes. Let's just say that, and go, well, that didn't work, But by the time we were ready to go, and I did have a lovely camera team, it was basically as smooth as just shooting a regular movie. But it took a lot of practice to get there.
So what, this is a big question that encompasses a lot of things, but what moment or scene did end up being the biggest challenge on this film?
Wow. Well, I would say just overall, the biggest challenge because was embedding Spider in all of these scenes where they're very different environments. You know, one he's on a beach and villages are burning. Now he's in a forest on a rainy day. Now he's in the forest on a sunny day. Now he's here. Now he's in at RDA, which is the man-made world. So overall, I would say that was it. Actually, what happened was the biggest challenge was the same challenge as on Titanic with shooting in water. It was, again, here we are, and I'm thinking, you'd think I'd learn, you know, things take 6 times longer to do underwater than they do, or maybe 10 times longer than they do, you know, on dry land. And it was just, that turned out just to be a major pain in the butt, to tell you the truth. And also, Spider had to wear a mask. I mean, the mask that he wears on dry land, or anybody wearing a mask, they don't shoot with a mask on, but special effects puts that mask in later in order not to have reflections and stuff. And so everybody can see how they made the movie in the mask, because they'd see all these lights up there. We couldn't do that underwater. And Spider's mask was curved in such a way that just keeping our lights out of his, yeah, that turned out to be, you know, painstaking, what can I say, and very, very slow.
Wow. Things like that you might not predict, or maybe you did see it coming.
Well, when we first started to test the mask, we saw it coming, and we just tried, okay, there's this solution. This solution's not perfect, but at least it's the best solution we have that will look right. Those are the kinds of things. Luckily, you get to test those things ahead of time. But then when you get into the kind of the heat of the moment of shooting something, it's just like, oh my God, you know, it's slow.
Would you ever like encounter these issues on the day of, things that you couldn't have predicted, and you know you'd have to figure them out in real time?
Let me see. How many moments of panic, of sheer unmitigated panic that I have over that? Yeah, there were quite a few. I mean, it was like mainly usually it was just something that comes up in the morning. You know, you might have just say, especially again, back to the water, working in tanks, you know, you talk with Jim and I mean, I think I have everything I need. I've looked at the scene as it's been presented. And then Jim, you know, because his mind is always working up to the last moment. And then he might come in and say, you know, what we need is this, oh, we need this, and this. You know, it usually has to do with the lighting. And you know, you just go, okay, but okay, but then just jumping in, and because again, you're back working in water and putting lights in the water. Those were really the panic moments that I had. It usually just had to do with, oh my God, you know, it's just something I didn't see coming, or for lack of imagination or otherwise.
So you've already shot the 3rd installment.
Yes.
So tell us everything that happens in that.
Oh, of course. I can't hear you. I'm in a tunnel.
Yeah. No, I honestly don't want to know. I'm very.
No, you don't want to. No, but I really, you know, because I do. I want to talk about it because I'm going, oh my God, you know. Well, it's like I could say about this. It's so gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. You know, it's those are the things. And you know, the only thing I can say is, in terms of this whole series of films, is that Jim is playing a very long game, you know, here, and he's got plenty of surprises, plenty of plot twists, and I guess that's all I can say. But again, it's you know, look, now it looks, the films are doing extremely well. I mean, the film is doing extremely well, and so I'm imagining we're going to see a 5 and a 6 in the, I mean, a 4 and a 5 in the series. And he's what can I say? He's got plenty of things happening to keep people involved.
Wow, that is so exciting. Well, again, I want to congratulate you on a fantastic job on the movie and all the success of the film. It's so deserved. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks very, very much.